Well, Andrew Glovey, I want to welcome you back to the show. A lot to dive into today, but I want to actually start with your journey. We're going to talk a little bit about where things started for you. You're a pastor, and you've dealt a lot in deliverance and in spiritual matters. But I want to go back to your career as an NYPD officer. Talk a little bit about who you were before finding Jesus.
Yeah, thank you, Billy. It's always a pleasure to be with you, and I'm glad to be back to discuss this topic because it's so needed. People are very prone to believe in evil when it comes to the supernatural, but not God's power and deliverance. So, real quickly, I'll just give a brief overview. Before I came to Jesus, I was a troubled, mean, angry, prejudiced cop. No other way to put it. I had a lot of personal issues that I was battling with, my own demons, and that's literally battling with demons. And then things that I had to deal with on the job, the stress and trauma of working in the Lower East Side of New York City during the 80s and 90s during the crack cocaine epidemic, seeing all types of violent crimes, abuse on children, sexual crime. It just culminated in me to where I was like a pressure cooker ready to explode. And it all came out one night on a roof in Harlem, New York City. As you know, I've shared my story before, but just to kind of encapsulate it real quick. I had a real rough day at work, and one of the guys that I worked with looked at me and said, "Columbia, you look like you're going to explode." And he was right. I was frustrated, angry, confused, fearful, all the emotions you can imagine. And that evening, I used to work a security job part-time in Harlem, and I used to go up to a roof late at night and lock up the roof. Well, on my way walking up to that roof, I started talking to God, yelling at God, cursing at God, screaming at God, took out my gun, and threatened, "God, if you're real and you're there, what's stopping me right now from blowing my brains out? I want to know what's wrong with me, and I want to know now." And it was in that moment that I had an experience like Paul, which I really relate to in Acts 9, where he had his Damascus Road experience. I had my rooftop experience, where God not only revealed himself to me in such a warm, loving, and fatherly way, but every question I had was like answered in a minute. I can't explain it. It was supernatural. The peace of God, the love of God, the power of God, the healing of God came on me in one instant. And I was caught up in this light and this presence. And I don't know if it was 5 minutes or an hour. I just know that in his presence, I experienced his peace and his love. And then all of a sudden, my hands went up in the air, and I started saying the name Yahweh over and over again and worshiping God in an unknown language, which in the Bible, it talks about speaking in unknown languages as speaking in other tongues. So I had this encounter with no church, no pastor, nobody convincing me or telling me to repeat after me, say what I say. It was a supernatural, authentic revelation. And on that roof, I received deliverance. I went home that evening after that encounter, woke up my wife at the time, told her what happened. When I was in God's presence, when I asked him what was wrong, he was revealed to me a dark secret from my past, that I was molested as a child. And when that was revealed to me, it answered a lot of the questions I had with why I struggled with certain things: perversion, anger, frustration, impulsivity. It answered a lot of questions. And when I was sharing that with my wife at the time, she said to me, "No wonder why you've carried so much anger, and you have so much anger." And when she said that, I let out this roar from the inside of my stomach, out of my mouth, and I felt something leave. I didn't understand it at the time, but now I know it was a demonic presence, spirit. I was delivered that night on that roof. When I woke up the next morning, I felt like a completely different person. But not only was I light, because the weight and the anger and all that stuff was lifted from me, that demonic oppression, spirit, all that. But now I had different eyes. And immediately, when I went to work, not fully understanding what happened, I started to hear things and see things in the supernatural realm. After I came to the realization of my personal deliverance, God started using me, delivering people in the 9th Precinct in uniform. I'd be walking a foot post, and somebody would walk by me, and I would hear, "Jesus killed my mother. Jesus killed my father." Now, when I look back and think about that, I don't know if it was an audible voice or it was a spirit speaking to me, but I would look at that individual, no training, raw, lay hands on him and say, "In the name of Jesus, come out." and that person went, rah, and a demon would come out of a person while I'm walking a foot post to the ninth precinct. I
So
started
you
to have
went from you went from bitter, angry, struggling. You had this encounter. Now you're walking down the street as a cop, delivering people of demons without even knowing really what you're doing. It's you just do it.
It was that quick and that direct. Yes, 100%.
Wow. When was was there sort of a obviously outside of the experience you had where you felt different, you felt someone leave you? Did you know in that moment that a demonic presence had left you? Did you understand that even though you were so new in your faith?